Major breaking news, more layoffs in the Austin area. Jeremy at the Night Group, your favorite Austin realtor. This one kind of baffles me because reading through the information that's out there about these layoffs, it doesn't really make sense. We'll talk about that in a second. We'll also talk about how this is going to impact the Austin area. Now, you've seen recently that there have been quite a few announcements of layoffs. So Amazon being one of them. In fact, there's new information out that Amazon's laying off 18,000 employees nationwide. And if you look at it, Austin has a lot of those employees now here because we have more growth that's happened up in the Georgetown area. And then you have growth that's happened in San Marcos with distribution centers. So that's going to be a kind of a big impact here. The second thing to think about is look at like Meta. Meta has laid off a lot of people recently. In fact, they're laying off 13% of their overall staff. And this isn't even the company we're about to talk about. And then you have like Cart.com's dropping off like 13% of their employees here in the Austin area. So we're starting to see a lot of layoffs here in the Austin area. So what do you think about the layoffs as far as what's happening in and around the Austin area? And what's really crazy about this, I know everybody's talking about all these layoffs, but if we actually look at the unemployment rate in the Austin area, it's actually come down even more. For a couple of months, it sat around 2.7%. Now it's down to 2.6%. So I know a lot of people are talking about how layoffs are really going to impact the Austin area. I want to hear from you in the comments. Seeing the fact that we're still at 2.6% unemployment, there are companies still moving here. We're going to talk about that in a second. How will these layoffs really impact the Austin area? That is the question here. So let's talk about what's happening because this just doesn't make sense to me. So Applied Materials is one of those companies that's been in the Austin area since like the 1990s. Now, what they do is a lot of like supplying materials for semiconductor plants, you know, like Dell, Samsung, all of these companies that are going crazy, Apple, that are going crazy in and around the Austin area with all this chip making coming here. So it's interesting that Applied Materials is seeing layoffs, but they're actually not laying off anybody. So Applied Materials is at 3,300 employees here in the Austin area. They're actually not laying off anybody. It's Ryder, the trucking company that does the logistics for Applied Materials. And this is where things just get so weird. If you know more about what's happening in Applied Materials, drop it in the comments because this just does not make sense to me. So Ryder is a big trucking company and they provide logistics services for companies like Applied Materials. And here's where things get really, really crazy about this. So Ryder is going to be laying off 801 employees from the facility there where Applied Materials is. Yet, what's interesting is if you look at the filings for Ryder, Ryder's doing very good. In fact, they're up 23%. So Ryder is way up. They're doing very well logistically, and they're laying off 801 employees at the Applied Materials site. Oh, and so here's some good information though. So Applied Materials sent out a letter to the city of Austin saying, hey, look, we're going to lay off 801 employees and from that Applied Materials site. But they're saying that a lot of these employees are going to try to rehouse and put somewhere else in the Ryder company. Now, Ryder isn't based here in the Austin area. It's based outside of Austin. So where those people go, I have no idea. But we're talking about layoffs of 801 people. Now, they're not saying where they are. They're not saying they're truck drivers. They're not saying they're in IT. They're not saying where they are as of right now. Ryder hasn't put out a statement saying what they are doing here or why they're doing it. But this is really, really just kind of bizarre to me. So, you know, and then the other thing is if you look at Applied Materials is not laying off anybody right now, but it looks like what they're doing is they're going to third-party sites to do their transportation. So what's interesting about this is that Applied Materials recently put out in the SEC filings that they're going to see increase in logistics costs, which is weird because they have Ryder right now, but they haven't seen really good improvements in the supply chain recently, even past COVID. So they're still having issues with supply chain, but still odd that they're laying off all these people. Now, here's what's really interesting about all of this though. So you're wondering, how is this going to impact the Austin area? Well, really right now, 801 employees from Ryder, we don't know if they're going to be rehoused, if they're having to leave, but that's a lot. And I know we're at 2.6 unemployment rate, but that could be a lot of people hitting the unemployment rate here in the Austin area. On top of that, you know, like I just said, Amazon's laying off a lot of people. So that's pretty interesting. And that's not going to help the, you know, unemployment situation here. And like I said, there's a lot of other companies. But what's interesting about this is you have Apple, who uses materials made by Applied Materials that go into the chips that Apple uses. Interesting how all that comes together. Yet they are actually expanding, you know, their campus that they were initially building. Now they're building another $240 million into that plant. So Apple's still growing its footprint here. You have Samsung that's still growing its footprint here. They barely started, you know, building that site out there. We talked about some other semiconductors and smaller companies coming out to the Hutto area in a last video. But then you have this Tesla, while they said they were going to be laying off people, Tesla is going to be investing another $800 million into the Austin area. So given all of this information, what do you think that actually means for the Austin area? Are we going to see a lot more Tesla employees moving here? In fact, I could tell you right now, I have about 8 to 10 Tesla employees we are actually working with. And even Tesla put out some information recently saying that they're having a hard time getting employees out here because of the cost of living. And in the next video I put out, we will talk about Del Valley. A lot of you asked about doing a Del Valley in my last video, asked about doing Del Valley. We will do that. It's something I need to film immediately. And it takes a little bit to pull all the information to give you a good quality video on that. I don't think this is going to impact the Austin area as much as people might think. I mean, you tell me if I'm wrong. We're looking at this going, hey, we have these employees leaving here, but we're getting more employees here. And I'm seeing a lot of people moving in the Austin area. We don't have the numbers out yet, but I'm curious to see what happened at the end of the year and what happens next year. I also drop a comment below. What do you think is going to happen this year in real estate? Do you think prices are going to come back? I can already tell you they're going to be negative for the next 6 months, like negative, like negative 16, 17, maybe 20%. And then they'll rebound because that's how they work. And I'll tell you that in another video. If you want to see that video, drop a comment below. We'll catch you in the next one. Jeremy at the Night Group, your Austin Realtor.